It's your boy Killer B. Goddamn Witch Finder General. You got a witch out, burn their asses up. I'll be right back at you.
True talk, I recognize true talk, I never lie. The second I'm proved wrong is the day the devil will cool off in temperature. In hell it be lukewarm, my temper is short like your attention span. Can't quite remember what you were offended at. My parents have no idea that I made a new friend in my detention class. His name is Tuesday, and he claims to be the Justin Timberlake of rap, bringing tension back. Heaven didn't take him, God sent his ass straight to hell. Satan said hell, no one sent him back. Took a selfie of himself and basked as he swelters in a smelly bathroom, as he's joking with the sweaty hand, because it's healthy, biatch. Looky here, I'm not your friend, and I'm not your bro. I'm not hip-hop or rock and roll, I'm just pissed off. I don't even like music, how'd I end up on this song? Looky here, I'm not your friend, and I'm not your bro. I'm not hip-hop or rock and roll, I'm just pissed off. I don't even like this song. Till Ronald Reagan and trickle down, the economy's gotten better. A shiny new nickel is what I found in this foggy weather. Pardon me, mister, but I don't want to start any problems. You just thought I saw it first. Yeah, you that call me that palm that don't act like I didn't watch it. Just pick it up with your sausage fingers and toss it right in your jockey, right in which pocket. I'm talking to you, you money-grubbing cocksucker. Go squat and sniff a whiff from under cheese from my boxers. These underbriefs have been wafted for months or weeks. I've been wanting to shop for laundry detergent for fucking weeks. For some strange reason, the MasterCard is maxed out and the Magna strip on my Visa. It hasn't been functioning. How convenient. I'm measly 5 cents short of completing this transaction. I'm asking the cashier to be lenient. I'd appreciate decency and compassion. I'll pay you back during tax season. Capiche? At least half of it. Looky here, I'm not your friend and I'm not your bro. I'm not hip-hop or rock and roll. I'm just pissed off. I don't even like music, how'd I end up on this song? Looky here, I'm not your friend, and I'm not your bro. I'm not hip-hop or rock and roll, I'm just pissed off. I don't even like this song. I guess I'll bury the hatchet. A person who holds a grudge isn't very attractive. And while I'm at it, bury those axes along with the bodies that belong to the cash register clerks after. Playing AC/DC backwards on a highway to hell, driving in reverse, riding with pastors. Peter Popoff and Jimmy Swaggart are fighting over some passage you can't find, cause his Bible is missing chapters. Listen, bastards, if you two don't pipe down, I'ma turn his car around or move the shift to drive right now. And don't think I'm not gonna find out who it was that took my coloring book and painted Black Jesus with white out. I dropped Joel Osteen off at the Antichrist's house and told him to wipe that smile off of his giant mouth for 5 minutes, then try frowning for 9 hours. And this is how I rise to my power. Looky here, I'm not your friend, and I'm not your bro. I'm not hip-hop or rock and roll, I'm just pissed off. I don't even like music, how'd I end up on this song? Looky here, I'm not your friend, and I'm not your bro. I'm not hip-hop or rock and roll, I'm just pissed off. I don't even like this song.
Yeah, it's your boy Killer B. Goddamn Witch Finder General. You got a witch, I'm burning their asses up daily. Yeah, man. Sorry about that. I guess I started the show and I had the mic volume down. So good thing he came in and saved the day. So I actually realized it. That was crazy. I don't know why the volume was already turned down on that, but that's what it was. But I'm back at you again. Start this again. And try to see what I got up in here. Okay. Alright. Share this thing. Need some shares. Okay. Alright. Hope everybody's doing alright tonight. Make sure y'all hit that damn like button on the way in. Support your boy. Give me a share if you can. And all the new people in here and stuff, you always hit that like, that subscribe button. Don't forget that. Greatly appreciated. So yeah, all snap. We got big time YouTuber Turk Tally up in the building. Got Sister Fee up in here. Got Willie Grits up in there with his little wrench. Yeah, he do. He sounds just like Eminem. Yup, he sounds just like Eminem. Yo, 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 yo. Chris Harris up in the building. Yeah, man. So I have a good one for y'all today. This will be kind of fun, this though. Some laughs and giggles and stuff. Shit. What's going on now? Oh, goddamn. Always something. Yo, what kind of shit is this, yo? Unbelievable, yo. Shit only happens to me. Shit only happens to me. Oh, I see. Okie dokie. All right. So today's show is going to be the best of 2019 top hate crime hosts. So we will be getting out their asses again and shit. God damn it. Motherfucking black people out here this lying. Making us look bad and shit. Making us look bad. But before I get into that, I had a good little topic. It wasn't enough to talk about for a whole show. It was on the Miss Universe contest, where there was an African woman that won. I guess it was Miss Africa or whatever, right? Her ass won. And she had a good answer. Like, they asked the question, what would be the best thing that you that they should tell young women in the world, right? And the woman said Miss Toonsy or something like that. But long story short, the Puerto Rican community just ragged out the African, this Miss South Africa. That's what she was. Miss South Africa, Zozine Benini Tunzi. She's 26 years old. They asked her, "What's the most important thing we should teach young girls today?" Let me get the picture up. Let me get y'all the picture up. The picture. That's her right there. All right. Miss Puerto Rico was runner up. Right? Now check this shit out. Check this out. Most of them hope to see Miss Puerto Rico, Madison Anderson Barrios, who doesn't use her last name in competition, right? So she don't want nobody to know. She just want to be known as Madison Anderson, not Barrios. That'll tell what she is, right? Anderson's capture a sixth crown for the island. Anderson's own crown, though, didn't come without controversy. The Puerto Rican public initially didn't see her as Puerto Rican when she entered. Like, listen to this. Listen to this. Now, this is shit that I've said on the show before. Right? She didn't enter when she entered the pageant because she was not born in the island. She doesn't speak Spanish, looks American with her light skin and fair hair. Her father also happens to be a bondholder who brings investors to the Caribbean, a sore subject in the island language, under the weight of $74 billion in debt to Wall Street bondholders. Right? To be Puerto Rican, it is carried in your blood and heart. I am proud to be the voice of Puerto Ricans from outside Puerto Rico, she said in an interview with local papers after her local win, after many Boricuas embraced her as their own. But it was Miss South Africa, Zozibini Tunzi, 26, who took the crown with intelligence and poise after she extolled leadership in answering the final question. What is the most important thing we should teach young girls today? That's what she said. I think we are the most powerful beings in the world and that we should be given every opportunity, Tunzi said. That is what we should be teaching these young girls to take up space. Listen, to take up space. Nothing is as important as taking up space in society and cementing yourself. And this was Puerto Rican ladies. Anderson, by comparison, said, in a world where many people wear masks, it's such a beautiful thing to see an authentic soul. That was her reply. Her answer. Right? Now check this out. Tunzi was crowned. Miss Puerto Rico became the runner-up. Many Puerto Ricans, angry their entrant had not won, expressed their disappointment via social media and showed people's authentic souls, which were racist instead of beautiful. Right? It showed people's authentic souls. It was not only for the usual social media trolls. The vitriol also came from well-known actors, television personalities, and candidates running for office, and members of the government from both Puerto Ricans and elsewhere in Latin America. Joe Pastrana, a supervisor for special education for the island's Department of Education, posed a racist message on his Facebook page called Tunzi, La Prima de Shaka Zulu, the cousin of Shaka Zulu, a South African military leader, though she is no relation. He is now reporting being investigated by the Department of Education because of his postings. Telemundo host Maria Celeste Reyes, a Puerto Rican who came under fire for her comments during a segment of her Telemundo show. Al Rozo Vivo, Telemundo is owned by Comcast and parent company of NBC. All right? She said in Spanish that Miss Universe is a pageant meant to measure beauty, not intelligence or IQ, implying that Tunzi was clearly and incorrectly not selected for her beauty. Arias also posed an Instagram photo congratulating yeah, y'all just call me up. If you want to, if you're watching a lot, Ghostface, just call me up. All right, on the Facebook thing. Okay, let me get back to where I was. Sorry about that. Yeah, so basically she was saying like, oh, they selected her because of her answer, like her intelligence, not her beauty. Obviously, not her beauty, right? Another person, Latino Rebels, a man named Gabby Rivera, posted a video on Facebook, but Yamilet Gonzalez, a House of Representative candidate for the pro-statehood New Progressive Party, in which he compared Miss Universe to the basketball star Kobe Bryant. Gonzalez agrees with Rivera and says, when I saw Miss South Africa, I was shocked. Why is she there? Nothing like a beauty contest to uncover the disgusting racism that is lived in Puerto Rico every day, wrote Collective Feminista and Sion, something like that. Puerto Rican feminist group active in see? So that's crazy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there is racism, like, with Hispanic people. Like I said, in New York and stuff, like, Dominicans don't mess with black people in New York City. Like, they're like a totally different, like, race. Like, they don't even consider themselves anywhere in the relation at all. They'd be black, dark as hell. Afro and everything. Be blacker than you. Cubans also. It is what it is. But yeah, let me get on with this show. The best 2019 hate crime hoaxes. Yep, price of admission. Thumbs up. That's right. All right, let me go on up in here. right, here go our first one. 2019 Best Hate Crime Hoaxes.
That degraded me and paraded me, and I'm not crying. No, I'm not.
He said, "You lazy son of a bitch. You need to go back where you came from."
Look how she look here, right? And how she looked at that, look like two different people. See, now she's a Georgia lawmaker. On top of this,
Because people are getting really out of control with this. With this white privilege stuff. I'm at the grocery store and I'm in the 10 aisle. The aisle that says 10 items or less. Yes, I have 15 items. He said, "You lazy son of a bitch. You need to go back where you came from."
Can you tell us on camera what happened?
I walked into Publix, bought my 3 items. There were 3 checkout lanes. One was an express. The other 2 were empty. I kept my tongue shut. I walked and paid for my items in one of the empty lanes. This lady I noticed had about 20 items on the conveyor.
An update to a story we told you about last week.
So y'all see that shit. Y'all see that foolishness and shit. So what we're gonna lie and gonna put it on the old Cuban man and shit. He said, "Oh, take your ass on back to Africa and shit." And the man is saying that she gonna switch up a story and everything. And she a lawmaker. A lawmaker. That shit is crazy. Alright, y'all ready for number 2? I'll give y'all number 2. This is a young girl with dreadlocks. She accused 3 white kids of holding her down, putting their hand over their mouth, and cutting her dreadlocks. Alright, let's get on it.
Week. A 12-year-old girl in Northern Virginia admitted she lied about 3 white classmates cutting off her dreadlocks. The girl accused the 6th grade boys at a private Christian school of calling her hair ugly and nappy, holding her down, and cutting it with scissors during recess. She acknowledged the allegations were false after a police investigation. The girl's family issued a statement reading, quote, "To those young boys and their parents, we sincerely apologize for the pain and anxiety these allegations have caused. We understand there will be consequences, and we're prepared to take the responsibility for them." The head of the school said, "While we are relieved to hear the truth and bring the events of the past few days to a close, we also feel tremendous pain for the victims and the hurt on both sides of this conflict."
It's been about 3 years since a fire at Hopewell Baptist Church in Greenville. Thursday, Andrew
Damn. Shit, stop. Yeah. That's go back to her. Digging up her nose, lying. Digging up her nose, lying. Don't make no damn sense. Digging up her damn nose, lying. And we just seen the last one. And now that's crazy. Wait, I got the. This is the original
After a
story.
12-year-old African-American girl said 3 white classmates pinned her down and cut her dreadlocks. The 6th grade girl says the boys held her down on the playground of the private Christian school in Springfield during recess this week. She says they called her dreadlocks nappy and ugly.
And then one of them put my hands behind my back. One of them covered my mouth. Took big chunks of my hair and just cut.
The girl says she's been bullied by the same boys before. Her family pays $12,000 a year for her to attend this school. The school issued a statement saying, "We take seriously the emotional and physical well-being of all of our students and have a zero-tolerance policy for any kind of bullying or abuse."
It's very disturbing about these boys because it's heartbreaking and traumatizing for that little girl. What's going to happen to them? It doesn't make sense to me that they would get to stay in that school.
They say zero tolerance. We'll see what that means.
Yeah.
I mean, even putting aside the
what does that
significance
mean?
even putting aside the significance of dreadlocks, hair is part of the body. That is an assault on someone's body.
And you know what's really sad is that she didn't tell her family for a couple of days.
She didn't?
She didn't. They just noticed that her hair was shorter, and they asked her about it, and she broke down.
Because it was too upsetting.
It was too upsetting, I
Yeah.
totally understand that. It's not clear why there weren't any teachers nearby when this happened.
The police are investigating it.
That's crazy. You know what I mean? That's a kid, but that is crazy. That could turn into some. There's like a lot of people like pissed off about that. They wanted answers, and then it comes to show that the girl just made it up. But we see grown ass adults doing this shit. You know what I mean? That's just one with a kid. But as we see here, we see grown ass adults, and now we're gonna get into another doofy dude that can do some more. What up, Josh? Little demon ass girl. Yeah, right? Yup. Hell yeah, she got a whooping, P. Hell yeah, you know that. I tell your ass, don't be lying around this. This whipping all that ass and shit. Yeah, she deserved that one. Cost all that shit. The white people did what to you? Yup. That was a private school too. Self-hatred started early with our people. Yep. All right, Bill, Willie Grits, I hear you on that one. Said Zilla Tollins, but she got bullied before. Yeah, she did say she was getting bullied. But she got asked, could be getting lied about that shit too. She looked like she could whip probably half the little middle school ass, little kid's ass anyway. Yup. Check out this big W and shit. Here's number 3. I think Greenville, South Carolina. I think. Yeah, some shit. We'll see. Check it out.
Clinton, a member of the church, pleaded guilty to starting that fire.
I'm very grateful that no one got hurt in the fire. That's any members or members of the community or firefighters. So again, it definitely brought national attention. There is closure now. And so, again, we're looking forward to really moving forward.
The fire was set a week before the presidential election. The smoldering building was found with the words "Vote Trump" spray painted on it.
It's definitely a sigh of relief for all of those who were involved.
Now you know. That nigga burned the shit down, burned the goddamn church down, and wrote "Vote Trump" on the side of the building. All the shit he could have done, yo. All the shit he could have done, yo. Like, he ain't do no kind of research or nothing. He's like, vote Trump, niggas. Niggas better vote Trump now. Yeah. This'll fix him.
Impacted as a result.
So I called him up and I said, hey, I'm going to run to Subway, which was across.
All right. Shit. Yeah, but we see. God damn it. All right, we make a run over here. The goddamn Witchfinder General. We make their asses run over here. God damn. Let me say it up in here. What else, Shamian? International news too. I hope parents didn't turn up in the school. Yeah, right? Yeah, he does look like he's off on his meds. Yeah, these niggas burning up shit, yo. They just burn up shit. That's what they be doing. Just burning up shit. They said the white man did it. He said, vote Trump, yo. I gotta play that shit. They just said, vote Trump, motherfucker. Ah, damn. Ah, damn. Old country nigga and shit. Old country nigga. Go back to this motherfucker. Vote Trump.
It's been about 3 years since a fire at Hopewell Baptist Church in Greenville. Thursday, Andrew McClinton, a member of the church, pleaded guilty to starting that fire.
I'm very grateful that no one got hurt in the fire. That's any members or members of the community or firefighters. So again, it definitely brought national attention. There is closure now. And so, again, we're looking forward to really moving forward.
The fire was set a week before the presidential election. The smoldering building was found with the words "Vote Trump" spray painted on it.
It's definitely a sigh of relief for all of those who were involved and all who were impacted as a result of it.
So I called him up and I said, hey, I'm going to run to Subway, which was...
Burn it down. And once again, I'm not supposed to get into it. Y'all already see the shit. I was going to play it.
across the street. And I'm going to get a salad. Do you want anything? I went to the Subway and got the order. During that time, I texted my manager thinking that he was still in Australia because he was on an Australian tour with one of his other clients. And I said, yo, call me when you can. He called me immediately. And while he was on the phone, I heard, as I was crossing the intersection, I heard Empire. And I don't answer to Empire. My name ain't Empire. And I didn't answer. I kept walking, and then I heard
Hold on.
Empire.
That nigga sounded
So I
like
turned
a
around.
bitch. Well, he made that shit up. He said, yo, I called my nigga.
I texted my manager thinking that he was still in Australia because he was on an Australian tour with one of his other clients. And I said, yo, call me when you can. He called me immediately. And while
He called me immediately.
while he was on the phone, I heard, as I was crossing the intersection, I heard Empire. And I don't answer to Empire. My name ain't Empire. And I didn't answer. I kept walking, and then I heard Empire. So I turned around and I said, did you just say to me? And then I see the attacker masked. And he said, this MAGA country punches me right.
This MAGA country bitch punched me in my face. He said, fuck Empire, nigga, bitch. It's MAGA country bitch. Yo, that ain't crazy, yo.
Attacker masked. And he said, this MAGA country punches me right in the face.
So I think there was a clear winner here, and that is Jussie Smollett.
Fine. No, I.
Oh, shit. That motherfucker's he punched me in my face. MAGA country bitch. Fucking man. God damn, man. God damn, we gotta keep them running. Keep their asses running. Trump. Oh, shit. They all burn, they burn down. They burn down the Ebenezer Baptist Church over there on Main Street. Oh, shit. Oh, man. Thank you, P. Ring that notification bell. Ding, ding, ding. Goddamn. Yeah, right? They said it's the coldest, coldest day in the world. He was out there trying to get a Subway. And the motherfucker said, Empire, nigga. This is MAGA country. And he punched me in my face. Oh, man. Oh, man. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. The stuff that we do, yo. The shit that we do. We just lie. Just make up shit. Just make up shit. Just make it up. Why we gonna get this shit to us? And that's what we got a problem with doing. We be trying to, like, do too much. Instead of doing what the fuck we supposed to do, we want to add on to that motherfucking shit. And try to make sure that shit stick. And end up just fucking up the whole thing. And be like, oh, shit, I didn't know that shit. Why nobody told me? Oh, man. I don't know. Yeah, that shit's crazy. Yeah, I ain't heard shit about that motherfucker. I don't like watching TV and shit. So I probably wouldn't see it anyway. But yeah, I haven't heard nothing. We're not even talking about that shit. Yo, he definitely the laughing stock of the year, yo. Definitely. Definitely the laughing stock of the year. Yup. Yup. That shit is crazy. Walking around Texas all because he wanted to raise. Yeah, he thought that shit would have boosted his career. Hell no. Subway sandwich. That nigga went to go get a Subway. Yeah, but that thing with the kid though, like that type of stuff happens. That happens. I want to say, but that's fucked up that she said it was 3. But the parents might have pushed that shit too. The parents might have pushed that shit. 3 white kids. Yeah. Yeah, it's 3 white kids. And that's probably, she might be the only black kid up in the school. Maybe. Unbelievable. Yeah, but that Puerto Rican thing was crazy though. What do y'all think about that? Hey, Mrs. B. What do y'all think about that? Yeah, that was definitely an ass whooping. Yeah, right? That's definitely an ass whooping. Made me go in front of all these motherfuckers on TV and shit. Your motherfucking ass is lying. You get fucked up. Oh, man. Oh, man. Embarrass they ass like that. Boy, there's a hurricane coming? Yeah, I don't pay attention to shit. God damn, there's a hurricane. This was Ghostface killer. Oh, I was stuck for a second. I'm sorry. Shit be happening. second here. What the hell? All right, this ain't working, goddammit. All right. Okay. Yo, what up, New Eric King? Yo, you want to come in? Send me a call through the Facebook. Miss B said, "Oh, P says the pageant had always been one-sided." Wait, the country's gonna be hurt. Okay, I got you. Miss B says they were complaining about racism and lack of aid from Trump during the floods and hurricanes, and now want to degrade black people on the world stage. Oh yeah, at work. Okay. Homeboy wrote on the bills. Oh, Trump. Unbelievable. Unreal. What can I else can I put right there? Okay. I got a hate crime for y'all. How about this? I got a hate crime for y'all. Malcolm X. Was Malcolm X assassination a hate crime? Who do y'all think did it? Well, we know the people got charged for it. The people that did it. Well, who do y'all think did it? You think the FBI had some involvement with it, or the Nation of Islam, or both, or I've been reading up on the COINTELPRO thing a little bit, and what I've been seeing, what I got out of it so far from what I've been looking into it, what people go by isn't actually in there. It's somebody's interpretation of it. Yeah, goddamn NOI. Goddamn NOI, yo. Yo, they the cult masters, yo, for real. Yo, they doing the damn thing. When you saw that video I did, when they beat Gaddafi for $5 million. They stuck him for $5 million. $5 million, yo. Ain't got shit to show for it. Nothing. With some bills. There's some fucking bills. That's unreal. That's unreal. And the other dude got free labor from his people. Got free labor, and the girl got awarded. The court awarded her $8 million for the coat from the They're called the what is it? The Universal Nation of Islam or United? Yeah, the United Nation of Islam. Not Nation of Islam, United Nation of Islam. Yup. She had a girl, in her teens into her early 20s, was basically a slave for the motherfucker. Like she would watch the people's children. They had them in like little sleeper cells. Like they had them in like little rooms and stuff or whatever. Like it'd be like an apartment or whatever with a whole bunch of them living up in there. And they would send her different places, working at stores, restaurants, all types of stuff for free. Cause she doing it for the truth. Like, you know what I mean? She doing it to help the coat. Yup. And then she broke free. They you know what I mean? They brainwashed her, all types of shit. But that same nation, United Nations Islam, that was out here in Connecticut. Yup, straight slaves for them. That's how IUIC was. Shit, I wasn't trying to let that shit happen. That's one thing I ain't let happen. Those them niggas slaves. Fuck that shit. Oh, 11 years old. Yeah. Yeah, man. It's like that shit's fucked up. And I think this like regular old niggas killed Malcolm X. I don't think the FBI had nothing to do with that shit. They might have had something to do with it. Or like, you know what I mean? From what I saw, what the FBI does, or with that counterintelligence like program thing they had going on, is they were going out against people that would disrupt America's social and political themes at the moment. Whatever was in power in the United States, that what they was there to protect. The social and the political values of the country, or values, or whatever how else you could put that shit. That's what they were there to do. They said they were against anybody like that would try to lead the people, like the American people, into communism, or anything that could form or different groups. So like you got say like a some kind of anti police harassment group, and then you got a group that's like a feminist group, and then you got another group that's for black oppression, another group that's for women's rights, another group for. But all those groups could have, they're all different, but they can have something that relates to each other. So what could happen is those groups actually merging into one. So like this, like say like you got the Hebrew Israelite community, right? And then you got the Kemetic community, right? The people that's in the Kemetic stuff, right? So, and then you got the vegan community, right? The vegan community could attach itself to both of those other communities, to the Hebrew Israelite community and to the Kemetic community, along with other communities. So what they were there to do is to disrupt that shit, to break that shit up. That's what they were there to do. Sea Corps. Never heard of Sea Corps. Sea Corps have those kids digging ditches. Oh, shit. Oh, nah. Oh, shit. You right. Wait, was it the 20s? Oh, shit. Or is... Nah, that shit got to be... Nah, they don't got no court on no Saturday. Well, Saturday night. I thought, was it the 20? I thought it was the 28th or the 29th. When the fuck I said, what date I said it was? Let me see. Hold on. Put that lady back up. Dig it up her nose. Hold on. I know it's on Facebook. Vacation station. Shit, man. There you go. All right. It is. Um, come on. The date is on 1/28. So that's today. We got court on a Saturday? That's strange. I ain't never heard of no goddamn court in session on a Saturday. Y'all ever heard that? Yeah, that's weird. That person might have got the date wrong, but shit. Maybe they do. I don't know. As we find out tomorrow. He gonna do some time. He might do some time. He can come with that millions of dollars and shit. They gonna give you some time for that. If he had like a couple 100,000 or some shit, he might have been good. Oh yeah, January 28th. I'm bugging. I was looking right at it too. You right. You right. You right. Scientology the same way. Yup. But that's crazy though. Like the shit with Malcolm X. Um, they said there was no police officers in the building at the time either. I would say that they knew or certain things because I believe like they do that shit now. Like if they're like undercover or something like that and some shit going down, certain stuff, they would probably let go on. I don't think they supposed to. That shit supposed to go down like if it's a death or something like that. I don't know, but I can imagine that what they'll do. I can imagine that, but that's crazy, man. Unbelievable. God, yeah, it's not today, Willie Chris. I heard. You think you're fucking smart now, huh? You think you're smarter than the rest of us now? Oh man, yeah, though. All right. But even Louis Farrakhan said he's sure he's attached to him being assassinated. Like he helped cause it happen. Not saying that he did it, but that he helped cause it happen by his speech, which is kind of like a kind of Seems like a pretty arrogant kind of thing to say. Motherfucker, I was reading them late then, motherfucker. I was reading them late. Alright. Let me play this thing. Bag of leaves, really? Really? Make me get out of your ass, Willie Grits. Let me get this thing down here. Exercise. I hope I'm alright to play this one. Should
It was a cold but very sunny day, and we were having a rally at the Audubon Ballroom. 2 weeks prior to that, he had been banned from France when he tried to go to speak in Paris. The next weekend, his home was firebombed. But I always remember him saying, "The way I feel today, I should not even be here." We said to him, "Then why don't you go home? Everybody can understand all the pressure you've been under." And he said, "No, I really have to speak today." I heard Brother Malcolm say, "Assalamu alaikum," and next thing I heard were the shots. I ran all the way down the Audubon and jumped up on the stage. His shirt was open. I saw all these holes in his body, and he was gasping. And I remember thinking to myself, he's going to die, he's going to die, he's going to die. These brothers came up, had a roller stretcher, because not one doctor would come over to the Audubon. They were right across the street, and they had to literally bogart a stretcher, and they rolled it back over to the hospital. It was announced that he had died. I stayed up all night. I was just sitting there. I was half crying. I was angry. The next day, I sat down and I wrote. I wrote about God. Brother Malcolm had the ability to inspire people, to make them transcend their own narrow interests and think of a larger entity. I think the human rights movement was derailed by the assassinations of Brother Malcolm and Dr. King.
Oh, man. Got 7 in the room. That like button. This is wrong.
Get the gift that keeps on giving all year long with Optimum TV and Internet for $49.99 a month. Enjoy.
Governor, let me just ask you this right straight out. What do you understand racism to mean, or how would you define that, or segregation? Would you say you're a segregationist?
Yes, and I believe in my term, or my definition of segregation is just And that is a segregation is a person that loves his race enough or other races enough, has enough of racial pride and integrity to want to preserve them. And I think a racist is one that doesn't care enough for his race or another race to where they don't care whether they're amalgamated or destroyed or not.
Then could I ask the governor a question?
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the black Muslims in this country?
Not too familiar with them, no.
Well, they practice black separatism.
Well, that's the reason I'm not familiar with them.
Good answer. Good answer. Gotta say. But
y'all hear that shit? Now this is he's a governor.
to continue along that line, do you feel that what they're doing is right? You know, they believe that white people should be separate. They believe that they should have a state in this country. I think they felt that Mississippi or Georgia should be, you know, one of those two states should be the state. Do you feel
I was thinking maybe they ought to make it New York.
New York, you think so? All right, I'm gonna get off of that, Governor. You look too tough.
No, I think that forced racial segregation is criminal and unconstitutional, and I think forced racial integration is criminal and unconstitutional. I think either one of them is cruel.
You mean on
social?
You mean on a social level?
Any level, where it's forced.
Well, we do have like the laws. You mean when the laws?
So is he saying force, meaning if the community itself doesn't want it, that it shouldn't be imposed on the people? Is that what he's saying? I don't know. Y'all tell me. Let me back this up.
It's criminal and
Mississippi or Georgia should be, you know, one of those two states should be the state. Do you
I was thinking maybe they ought to make it New York.
New York, you think so? All right, I'm gonna get off of that, Governor. You look too tough.
No, I think that forced racial segregation is criminal and unconstitutional, and I think forced racial integration.
He said forced racial segregation is unconstitutional, right?
Is criminal and unconstitutional. I think either one of them is cruel. Unconstitutional is criminal and unconstitutional. Forced racial segregation is criminal and unconstitutional, and I think forced racial integration is criminal and unconstitutional.
Forced racial integration.
So I think either one of them is cruel.
You mean on
social?
You mean on a social level?
Any level, where it's forced.
Well, we do have like the laws. You mean when the laws are enforced, that if it involves integration, then it is wrong.
If it forces people against their will, against denying them their choice, to separate or to integrate.
There should be an
exception. It'd be just as wrong if the law would be just as wrong to force them to integrate as it would to be to force them to segregate.
Well, don't you?
If a country can finally get to the point of saying, well, you're going to hire this person, you're going to promote this person, you're going to serve this person, then the same country can come right around and tell you, you've got to work for that person, you've got to eat with that person, you've got to be served by that person. And this would be cruel and wrong, but so it is when it tells another person that you've got to do this.
Well, the laws of the land tells us all what we have to do, basically.
That doesn't make it right.
Well, I agree with that, but
the Supreme Court goes outside the Constitution. That doesn't make the Supreme Court right, does it?
Don't you believe to have an affluent society, we've all, chose to live in a society together. Don't you believe that to preserve that society that we need laws of the land? That's why we have a society. And we cannot make exception to these laws just because a person happens to be black or white. Don't you believe that?
We've got most of these laws because we don't abide by the laws of God, though. And so we try to go against the laws of God and against the laws of nature, and we say, well, you're inferior, and you're not going to be able to meet with success in education or in your social life, even in your religious life, unless you do it with another race. And this teaches inferiority to me. And it's wrong, and it's criminal, and it's cruel to teach any one person that he is inferior to another race or his race is inferior.
But as governor of the state of Georgia, that we need laws of the land. That's why we have a society. And we cannot make exception to these laws just because a person happens to be black or white. Don't you
We've
believe
got
that?
most of these laws because we don't abide by the laws of God, though. And so we try to go against the laws of God and against the laws of nature, and we say, well,
wait, hold on, not to be funny, but then he said, we do this because we go against the laws of God, though. Like, that's how black people talk. Is that what he said?
Because a person happens to be black or white. Don't you
We've
believe
got
that?
most of these laws because we don't abide by the laws of God, though. And so
The laws of God, though. You heard him?
Because we don't abide by the laws of God, though. And so we try to go against the laws of God and against the laws of nature, and we say, well, you're inferior, and you're not going to be able to meet with success in education or in your social life, even in your religious life, unless you do it with another race. And this teaches inferiority to me. And it's wrong, and it's criminal, and it's cruel to teach any one person that he is inferior to another race or his race is inferior.
But as governor of the state of Georgia, did you go by the laws of God or by the laws of the state?
I go by the laws of God and by the laws of the state.
As you see fit.
What is...
No, sir, not as I
I was going to ask the governor, when you say it's morally wrong, integration, I believe that's what you said, or
I said forced segregation or forced integration, racial integration or forced racial segregation. They're both morally wrong, cruel, and they're in violation of the United States Constitution, which is the law of the land, not the Supreme Court ruling that denies the Constitution.
You know, I assume you know Dr. Billy Graham.
Sir?
I said, you know Dr. Billy
Yes,
Graham?
sir.
He was here last night, and he said that racial prejudice is also morally wrong. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yes, sir. I think racial prejudice is wrong. Yes, sir. Our government's probably practicing more prejudice today than they ever practiced in all the land so far as between the black and whites.
There was a quote that you made on the fight in Miami that Muhammad Ali participated in with Jerry Quarry. And, well, not in Miami, but in Atlanta. But black people always felt that Atlanta was the model city of the South because of its integration and because of the participation in economics of black people. And your statement on the day of the fight was something like this, that it's a dark day in Georgia because this fight is being put on. Now, the law of the land said that a man can participate.
Get the gift that keeps on giving with Price for Life.
See that shit?
Participate in his particular profession unless he is in jail. I felt very happy that this fight took place in Atlanta. How did you feel about it?
I felt very sad.
And why was that?
Here's a man that has said, well, here I want to fight in the ring for money, but I won't even wear the uniform of my country. He says that I can't do this, but in other words, I'm going to act different from these other people who stand up for their country and put on the uniform. Had they not fought for this country, if they were not even fighting today and wearing this uniform, that he could not even get in a ring and fight and be a free man to fight.
Isn't it true?
So he's helping to tear down this country with this philosophy, with this belief. Suppose every American, Mr. Brown, suppose every American had decided that they were not going to put on the uniform of their country and not fight for it. We wouldn't have a United States of America, and I couldn't be on your show, and you probably wouldn't even have a show tonight.
It true?
If everybody had that attitude, and I don't like it, and I don't care whether you like it, don't care who don't like it.
I did serve my time, which, of course, I was a little before Muhammad Ali, and I was not maybe as intelligent as he is, because he was the first individual, I think, in this country that came out and said he had nothing against the Viet Cong. I think there were two other politicians in the country that made a very similar statement later. The late Bobby Kennedy came back from Vietnam and basically said the same thing. At the time, it was not a popular stand to make, but today it is a very popular stand. In fact, we have a lieutenant that's on trial now for certain things that happened in Vietnam. But I am saying that this man followed the law of the land. He made his stand. He has been fighting through the courts. He has gone to the higher courts, and he will go to jail if he is proven guilty.
Well, I hope he does go. I hope, because I think he's guilty of treason.
Can I finish? Don't you feel that whenever a man goes through the courts, that he is abiding by the laws of the land, and that man who is willing to stand up with that decision is a brave man, regardless of what his beliefs might be? I know a lot of Southerners who, really like black people. And, they portray themselves as being really segregationists, and they hate black people and so forth. But
I know some black people feel the same way, but I don't know any Southerners that don't like, white Southerners don't like blacks. Do you know of any? Can you name one?
I'll tell you something. That's a very interesting
can you name one?
No, I'm going to answer that question. It's an interesting point.
It is, yeah.
They like black people, but they like them in a role, you see. They like them when they're very humble and they're very loyal.
I like humble people whether they're white or black, don't you?
I know, but you see...
The loyal people whether they're black or white, don't you? I mean, you just like them. You don't like them loyal.
You don't like the black people to have the choice, you see. It's only a matter of choice.
I want black people and white people to have choice. You got it all mixed up. You're trying to twist it around.
No, I'm only trying to agree with you. Would you let me finish?
If you'll tell the truth.
Well, I'm only making an analysis, really. It's not a matter of truth or false. What I'm really saying is that basically history has proven that during the days of slavery, whenever a slave was more or less humble, and he did what he was told, that he was in good favor with the master. But whenever a slave was too educated, if he became aware of his own self and he wanted to become more than the master wanted him to become, then he was a bad slave. He was then put down because he represented a threat to the already established kind of white society.
Let me say this. Those situations are true with white people and black people. Now, you're just trying to point it at black people only.
Because
but they've been throughout the history of the world, there's been discrimination. Black against black, black against white, white against black, and white against white. There always has been, there always will be. And you're not going to wipe it out, and Tricky Dick's not going to wipe it out, and the Supreme Court's not going to wipe it out.
You're not addressing it. You're not addressing
Are you referring to me as Tricky Dick?
No, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, you are? Oh. Well, you know something, Governor? Believe it or not, I don't think that integration should be the number one thrust of our civil rights leaders anyway, because I think what we're really talking about in this country is economic development of black people. Because I've found
economic development of all people.
Well, we're talking about
how come just black people? How come you don't want to do it for black people? How come you don't want to do it for white people?
I'll tell you why.
Huh?
I'll tell you why.
How come you don't do it for everybody? How come you always black people? You're talking about all people.
Can I give you an answer?
I think we understand the question.
Yeah.
Can I give you an answer? Do you mind?
Oh, go ahead. If you're ready, I'll give you time.
Okay, Governor. What I'm really saying is that there are some people that have suffered in this country, poor people generally, but let's say that we have various ethnic groups in this country that have attained a certain kind of equality. Black people are more or less, along with the Indians, on the last rung of the ladder. Can I finish, Governor?
Boy.
Can I finish? Okay, do you mind?
Governor,
now, what I'm really saying is that I feel that the way to bring about equality of black people in this system is through economic...
What about equality of white people? Now, I won't interrupt you every time you keep calling black people.
Well,
what about equality of all people?
If you interrupt me, Governor, I can't talk to you.
Well, you're just going to talk about black people, don't include all people. I try to include all people. You're just interested in the black. Why don't you tell these people that in Atlanta, Georgia, where you keep talking about the South, that the percentage-wise, more black people are professional business people, industrial leaders, more of them in our state house elected officials than any other state in the country.
Can I interrupt?
Y'all hear that? Y'all heard that?
All people. I try to include all people. You're just interested in the black. Why don't you tell these people that in Atlanta, Georgia, where you keep talking about the South, that the percentage-wise, more black people are professional business people, industrial leaders, more of them in our state house elected officials than any other state in the country.
Can I interrupt you?
Now, this is something that sparkled when he said that, right? What it made me think is, I don't know that much about politics. First to tell you. Now, what he's saying, he's hinting to him about something, and I've heard the same thing Hillary Clinton did to someone these I believe they were black college students that went to protest about the I believe it was about the what do you call them, the predators or whatever you call them, people, right? The young black kids, predators. Or it was something, right? They blamed her for it. And they asked her, like, she said, "Well, what are y'all doing?" Like, he said, "I'd be more than happy to sit down and talk with y'all, but like, y'all gotta have y'all things stuff together. What are we talking about? What have you done?" Not doing the work. And what we do, you see how he's talking about black. The government can't work off of that. If I got this right, the government has to have laws, legislation, all that stuff for the people. Not a people. For the people. Like civil rights. Civil rights wasn't for black people. Civil rights is for everybody. Like I did a past show where I showed where the Hispanics and stuff, most of the Hispanics were classified as Caucasian, as white, until civil rights came around. And that's where the term minority came in. That's what the word minority was for. It was for the Hispanics, not black people. That's who the minority was. But it was like an umbrella thing. You know what I'm saying? Don't mean these things have to be for the people. Not this one thing. Like, they will never listen to you. Just like I say too, like when we protest like police shootings, they say police brutality. There's no law for police brutality. They don't say they have murder, assault, manslaughter. Like, you know what I'm saying? They never say nothing like that. They always say something that don't make no motherfucking sense. Police brutality. Stop killing black people. They're not going to have that in the newspaper. When you see like the police or something, there be a shooting, or police shoot somebody, or somebody shoot the police, they don't have it worded in there. Oh, this dude's charged with murder. Not police brutality. Murder. Or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? I know. What up, Q? Yeah. Exactly.
Can I interrupt?
Be all right, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. See, I'm not really here to fight with you. I'm only trying to have a discussion with you.
I'm not going to fight with you either.
And I'm trying.
See, but what wins him, Jim Brown is like, I don't know, like Jim Brown like that. He had maybe that good attention. I don't know. Right. I ain't from back. But Jim Brown wins from a, how can I put it? Cosmetics. Like, you know what I'm saying? He Jim Brown. He probably famous dude. Like, you know what I'm saying? He got that suit on and he talks slick and stuff like that. Like, you know what I mean? The people like him. He's presentable. You know what I mean? Where people, he's not the white dude. He might be put in the media as a black guy, a bad guy, or whatever. So he's not the favorite person. Jim Brown is the favorite person. But I don't know. But it seems like people were cheering for the government or Jim Brown. So that definitely was something. But let me continue.
Trying to use the technique.
There's a lot of people out there watching you, and I want you to be fair about all people, not just black people. We got a lot of people in this country.
I can understand that, but you do know I have a reputation, right? And I saw
I don't
you.
know about it.
I saw
Tell
you.
me what your reputation
I
is
saw you
now.
bring that state trooper back there, you know, behind the curtain. I know you brought him back there for a reason.
Now you see that? You see what he just did? See what he just did? Niggas go crazy. Listen.
What your reputation
I
is
saw you
now.
bring that state trooper back there, you know, behind the curtain. I know you brought him back there for a reason. And I saw you.
Tell me what your reputation is
I saw you
now.
bring that state trooper back there, you know, behind the curtain. I know you brought him back there for a reason.
Listen to his reply. See how everybody laughed and stuff? Now listen to his reply. Listen to the governor's reply.
That's not my purpose tonight.
Now here you go, try.
That is not my purpose
Well, you let
tonight.
me tell you this.
Would you like to join this
No,
conversation?
I'm going to say this.
I would like.
Let me say this,
Would you let Dick talk a little
No, I've
now?
got to say this. No, I'm going to let him talk
See,
right now.
before I got on this
Because I got a state trooper like all the other
Look, listen to this.
governors in the country carry one, and they require it in the state governments that the governors have. Because I got a state trooper like all the other governors in the country carry one, and they require it in the state governments that the governors have security personnel.
You didn't get him because
so
you
I
knew I
carry
was
one
here,
of them. I didn't even know you would be here. It was. Let me say this, Mr.
Would you let Dick talk a little
No, I've
now?
got to say this. No, I'm going to let him talk
See,
right now.
before I got on this
Because I got a
program, you
state
wouldn't
trooper
talk,
like all the other governors in the country carry one, and they require it in the state governments that the governors have security personnel.
You didn't get him because
so
you
I
knew I
carry
was
one
here,
of them. I didn't even know you would be here. It was a surprise when I came here tonight and found you would be here.
Wait.
I've never traveled anywhere in the United States since I've been governor. No other governors travel without one security personnel. Some of them have 3 and 4. I carry one man as an aide, not as security.
Governor Mattis, could
Are you afraid because I came up here with an aide?
I've forgotten what my voice sounds like. I would like.
See, he made it seem like he sent the state trooper there just in case like the nigga get out of line or some shit, like, right? But he told me, he said, yo, that's what we have to do. We have to carry at least one security guard where we go. He said some people have 3 or 4. He said I only need one, and he's not a guard to me. I treat him as an aide.
Governor, I don't want you to create the impression that you were trapped in any sense. That I mean, it's been known for some days that Mr. Brown was going to be here. We didn't actually trap you, did we, into coming in?
Well, I want you to know that I didn't know he was going to be here, but it wouldn't make no difference because you invited me and I accepted the invitation.
Yes.
But he said something about I know his reputation. I don't know Jim Brown. Who is Jim Brown?
Well, let me introduce you.
If you shop.
So what y'all think? Jim Brown won't accept it because of the insistent need to blame white people. When one admits that they have a drinking problem, they can progress. If they never admit it, nothing happens. Few said once black folk admit we have done harm to ourselves, then we can repair it. Right, Jim Brown made it a race thing when everyone does that. Yep. And those are the little things that people so-called whatever help with rights for black people and all that shit. Like, know what I'm saying? That's where they gotta be careful with. Like, to cut out that bullshit. Cause that's the shit that make you look crazy. and motherfuckers don't take your ass serious, and that should have never happened. But anyway, half the motherfuckers over half the motherfuckers that doing that shit, involved with all that stuff, they don't care about the people anyway. They're in it for a check. That's for sure. They in that shit for a check. And that's it. It's a check. This he said, yeah. It's a check. All they there for. Jim Brown was a football player, ain't he? I'm not like a sports fanatic. I know Jim Brown from back in the day. He was a famous person. I never really paid any attention to that shit. Supposed to be another one.
Get the gift that keeps.
Governor, what have you done for the blacks in your state?
Well, they came to my office in the beginning and said what they wanted done. I said, well, I'm not going to make any decisions based on black people or white people or any other group. It's going to be based on what's best for this state. We've had more of them to visit with us in the governor's office and the governor's mansion and in all the history of the state. We've employed more of them in responsible positions, placed them on the selective service boards, on state constitutional boards, more than all the governors in the history of the state. And they've become a part of their government for the first time.
Yeah, I was surprised. I did a lot of reading on you, and I found that you had appointed a great number of blacks to the
more than all the governors in the history of the state. We do ours on the basis of who is best qualified, and it has nothing to do with their color. That's the reason I'm glad you've asked that question, because they've been all directed tonight similarly at trying to in the other direction. But I think we ought to talk about the positive things more in this country than what we're doing.
I know that when you were elected, a lot of people were just horrified, and they said that people in Atlanta, some of them stayed home from work and all and didn't know quite what to do. And that then your administration has surprised a number of people in that sense that you have neither been a segregationist's dream, no, in one sense, I mean an extremist segregationist, nor the liberals' darling on the other hand, certainly.
Well, we based our decision on people.
Did you have a kind of change of heart?
The government belongs to all of them. None whatsoever. I've always based my decisions in business and in steel mills and factories and plants, wherever I worked all along. And the only people that were surprised, Dick, were those that had been misinformed. The people that knew less mathematics, the people I had been associated with, and all my life knew that I would be fair and just to every citizen, regardless of whether he's from rural or black or white or urban, rich or poor. And we've had more, like I say, we've had more black and white people to visit with us there in the governor's mansion, the governor's office, than in all the history of the state, and even at this time.
I know
we're having more black people to visit in the governor's mansion and the governor's office than all the other 50 governor's offices in the United States, even at this time.
Yeah, I hear the door is always open, which is rare in today's politics, and you do have people.
Well, we try to run the governor's office like you run your own business, your own home.
Did you have any problems from the bigots in the South?
Have any problems with us?
From the white bigots, because you did so much for the black man.
What do you mean, which white bigots? The black ones and white ones I have trouble with from time to
time. No, I said white bigots.
I have the black races and the white races that create some problems.
Did you have any problems from the white races because you did so much for the black people?
Mr. Brown asked you, Governor Maddox, if you'd had any trouble from your white admirers for the fact that you have done.
He didn't say admirers, sir.
No, he said bigots.
Well, why didn't you say it like he said?
You have me there.
Why didn't you say it? Now, see that what I'm talking about, Dick?
I do see it.
You take words and twist them around, and you mislead the people in the audience and all. You ought to start being honest, all of you, with your words and what you're saying to people. You said admirers, and he said bigots. A lot of difference, isn't there?
Yes, I feel like a bigot person.
Why do you want to mislead the people like that?
I didn't mean to mislead the people. It is a good question, though, isn't it?
Well, it's a good question, but for you to come back and call bigots my admirers is a farce. It's a act of hypocrisy. It's a terrible way.
I don't know. That kind of sound like some Trump shit right there. That's kind of sound like what they doing to Trump. I don't know. What y'all think? Yeah, actor, big actor. If you have a brother or a friend who has ever sold crack, weed, heroin, cocaine, acid, where was a white man making him do it, he's going to tell you he did it on his own, and he wishes he went to college. He has 7 foreheads. He has 7 foreheads. Yup. Yeah, you're right, Q. This guy called a spade a spade. Outside the cube, even the host is playing into racism. Rowling is antagonizing. Showed his hand. He said, "Yeah, Q." He showed his hand on that. Up.
To treat a guest on your show, and you know it. Huh?
You know he's right about that.
Why don't you apologize to the people for calling people that are my admirers bigots?
Now wait a minute. I'll take you half seriously on this, but I won't.
We got over 4 million people in Georgia that are of my friends, and I call admirers, and you calling them all bigots.
No, I'm not.
Now you apologize to them.
No, I won't.
All right.
Oh no, don't. Please.
You better apologize.
Sit down. I'll explain it. Let me see.
I'll answer his question when you apologize to people.
Let me see if I can focus in on this. If in fact I have called...
got friends that are black and white and admirers, and they're none of them bigots.
May I now answer?
Yes, sir.
If I called any of your admirers bigots, who are not bigots, I apologize. Your turn. Now let the governor answer. Please.
I wouldn't accept that on representing the people of Georgia under any circumstance. You're saying that some of them are bigots. If you can't be fair, if you can't be decent, you don't belong on television. I don't belong here with you.
I hope you'll stay. I don't... I know there are white bigots
Why don't
and
you
there are
apologize
black
to people
bigots.
of Georgia, those friends of mine, for calling them bigots?
I think I made
Now, either you do it, I'm going to leave now, Dick. Whichever one you want.
Wait a minute. Please don't leave.
Well, you
I'd like
apologize
to
to people of Georgia. And he owes them an apology, too. The only biggest that I...
Wait.
You wait a minute. You wait a minute. You wait a minute. The only biggest that ever I've been involved with came out of New York, New Jersey. The white ones that came from New York, New Jersey came down there and tried to destroy the South and tell the lies about what's going on in our part of the country, which is one of the leading parts of the country, moving forward in all areas today.
Uh-huh.
And the only biggest I've ever had to come in there were the white ones that came from your city and from New Jersey to try to wreck and destroy. Now, Dick, I'm gonna give you 1 minute to apologize to people you call bigots in Georgia. I'm gonna leave the show. Now you do whatever you want to about it.
Oh, wait a minute. What are the terms? Wait a minute.
You got 1 minute to tell them that you don't call any Georgian a bigot.
How much time do I have?
Please. Governor, I find you most interesting. You're a most interesting man. There's something likable about you at your most outrageous moments. And
what do you mean outrageous moments?
I honestly don't know how seriously to take you at
Now,
this
why are you
moment
talking
because
about outrageous moments?
I don't think I have consciously offended anyone, and I didn't mean to. And if I have unconsciously offended anyone, then there's no need to apologize because it was an accident.
Well, tell him that you've made a mistake then.
I would say that I phrased the question in a way that was not exactly accurate in the sense that he did say bigots. Have any white bigots been upset because you have done certain things for the blacks?
You came back and said my admirers. You haven't apologized yet, and you got 15 seconds.
All right, now let me use those 15 seconds. I apologize for suggesting that a bigot would be the way of characterizing all of your admirers.
No, good night.
Wait a minute. There's more time.
Good night, sir.
I'm sorry the governor left. He may be back after this message. We will.
Yeah. 1970s trolling, yeah, right? This is me. Yep. The host wanted a conflict to boost his ratings, yep. Outside of Cuba. He said they already had an opinion on the government before he came to the show. Yup. And they had to fit everything, they had to do everything they needed to do or wanted to do to him. And he wasn't giving them the windows to do it. So they just had to throw all that shit in there. They had to do what they can. You've never seen a show, I never seen, outside of Cuba, I've never seen a show that told black men to not take care of their kids. See the show that told black men to take care of their kids. I saw an issue and I took care of my business. Where are these white men telling black men and women to do wrong by their kids? Yeah, right? Outside the cube. Get the fuck out of here. You say blame whoever you want, but guess what? When you wake up and the bills ain't paid and there's no food in the fridge, that's your fault. Yup, alive. Hugh said no one wakes up without a job and blames the white man. DoorDash, Postmates, Amazon, etc. Fuck out of here with that. Outside the cube, they wanted high to be racist, but they wasn't like that. All right, cube. That show went left. Yep. That shit's crazy. He was a bad motherfucker though. He was quick on his shit. Let's see if I find some more videos on him. See what else kind of shit he was in. That's the Maddox. Lester Maddox, sophomore racist. God damn, the nigga was a Klansman. Nigga was a Klansman.
Lester Maddox ran a small cafeteria on what's now the Georgia Tech campus. And Lester Maddox was an ardent supporter of the system of segregation.
He was a segregationist, believed that he could run his business and serve to whomever he wanted. And that's pretty well the way he ran that business until the Civil Rights Movement, and he began to be challenged about it. Folks came to be admitted, and he resisted. He and others picked up some axe handles and ran folks off in front of cameras.
He saw that desegregation was going to run his business, and so he was a vocal supporter of segregation and an opponent of the political leaders who were making accommodations.
And when in the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was passed and ratified, Maddox decided to close his cafeteria instead of observing the law. He had an interest in politics, and he ran for governor. He unexpectedly won the Democratic primary, to the surprise of many people. It obviously was a protest vote on the part of many white voters. When Lester Maddox became governor, he clearly was ready to assure that the state would remain as opposed to desegregation as possible. He surprised a few people by doing things that no one would expect somebody who had run black folks out of his restaurant with an axe handle would do. He appointed some black people to office, to appointed office in Georgia. And that surprised a lot of folks. They thought he would try to maintain an all-white government. Governor Maddox did not do that. But he also did not welcome desegregation, and he resisted it as much as he could within the powers of his office. He also exhibited very little sympathy and understanding of the African American community. For example, when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, he refused to lower the state flags in honor of his death.
It was clear with all of the changes that were taking place in the public schools, in the universities, with the Civil Rights Act of 64, the Voting Rights Act of 65, and the Fair Housing Act of 68, that was much more difficult to maintain. And so Lester Maddox, as governor, had to begin to make accommodations himself.
We had a Georgia law at that time which said that no governor could succeed himself, so that you could have one term but couldn't run again next term. You had to wait at least 4 more years. Well, Governor Maddox decided he didn't want to wait 4 more years. He would just run for lieutenant governor. And the person who took office as governor was Jimmy Carter, who ran as a clear moderate. So Jimmy Carter, a moderate New South governor, and his lieutenant governor, with whom he had lots of conflicts during his term, was Lester Maddox, the governor who had run people out of his restaurant a few years earlier with an axe handle. It was a period of transition.
Governor Wallace, I'd like to ask you a question in the economic.
I'm here on a mission of peace. I say to you tonight that we're going to do just that. We're going to restore states' rights. We need people like, and I'll say this, we're going to get people like that. We're going to get them like George Wallace at our state capitol. We're going to get them like George Wallace in the White House and save this great land.
George Wallace was shot down this afternoon as he campaigned in Maryland, not far from Washington. We are dispensing with our normal format to bring you that story. Howard?
I was just passing through here today on my way to the sheriff's convention in Valdosta, and they asked me to come back through this evening. I stopped to have my car repaired and to get a bite to eat, and I did come back through this evening. Oftentimes we get accused of saying something maybe or being someplace that we shouldn't, and the same people that say, well, you shouldn't come in or you shouldn't be here, are the same people that never criticize the communist agitators for being in your city or any other city. You know, I want to express my appreciation for the news media, for the kindness that they did show me in Atlanta, the fairness that they were to me, and for their presence here this evening, and I hope they will continue with the same fairness. I want to say this. Coming in from America, from Cordial a while ago, from Tipton, we heard a radio announcer say they have imported Lester Maddox to America. Nobody imported me down here. I belong here. I belong here in Georgia. You haven't heard the same news people say that they imported the communists had you, and they won't do it. Now, they'll call me, and they're all over the United States tonight, television, all the networks. In my home city, I called my wife in the hospital in Atlanta, and they've been calling her in her hospital room in Atlanta to tell her that I was in America tonight.
Let's get him before he marries my daughter.
They say segregationist Lester Maddox, and I'm proud to be called a segregationist, but I challenge the news media to call Lightbulb Johnson or call Lightbulb Johnson or Ivan Allen or no not one Vanderbilt an integrationist. That's what they are, every one of them. I should call them what they are. It's a sad day in America, it's a sad day in Sumter, it's a sad day in Georgia and in the south of this state that we would let the President of the United States, Ralph McGill, and the communists all join in a conspiracy to bring about this great tragedy that has taken place in America, Georgia. And they are responsible. Others who are responsible, businessmen, whether it be in America, in Atlanta, in Washington, wherever it might be, that know that this is against the Constitution and know it's ungodly and know it's sinful and know it's unchristian, and yet they say I'm in business and I better not say anything. Cowardly businessmen, and I used to be one before my business was stolen, but cowardly businessmen refusing to take a stand have placed America on the threshold of a complete tragedy for all of our people, regardless of race, creed, color, or national origin.
What's that? The sign of the invisible empire. That's a cyclos, from the Greek word kuklos, means circle. This baptizes a new organization, the Ku Klux. Sounds good. No. Ku Klux Klan. Sounds more mysterious, more menacing, more alliterative. Ku Klux Klan. Say it. Ku Klux Klan. KKK. KKK. It'll catch on quick. It'll drive those carpetbaggers back north. Scare the hell out of them. Tar, feather them, hang them, burn them.
Yeah, you know, sometimes they say that we talk too much and say, or maybe we shoot a lot of bull, but I want to tell you about the bull that was, one morning he was out and I'm here on a mission to help restore my private property rights and yours. I'm here on a mission to help to restore state rights and constitutional government. I'm here, if you please, to run the renegades out of high places in the state of Georgia and in the nation's capital.
General Forrest, Nathan Bedford Forrest. General, you going around taking credit for founding the KKK. I'm the founder. I'm the Grand Wizard. What's our word? Secrecy. If Christ walked the streets of my hometown, he'd be horrified. You've never seen so many black people covering up our schools and buses and cafes and washrooms. I'm for pure Americanism. White supremacy! Listen to me, Americans. America for Americans. We got to throw rocks and hurl bombs. Black bombs for black foreigners. So they like hot music, do they? Burn that freedom bus. Burn those freedom riders. Burn any man who serves them at a lunch counter. Burn every dirty, nigger-loving pocketbook integrationist. Collect a lot of blackjacks and good long lengths of pipe. Show those rabble-rousers they can't breathe our white air
and go to school with our white children.
America.
This shit, yo, this shit is crazy. Unbelievable. Wallace, yeah, I want to get it. I never heard of him either. I want to play that stuff. That was good. Yeah, Governor Wallace, defending segregation.
Gary, one of the major phenomena that America has experienced in the last several decades has been the mechanization of labor in rural areas, such that hundreds of thousands of people in your state and in many other states have been thrown into a state of near starvation, many of them being forced to migrate to the cities, particularly in the north. You've spoken a great deal about the obligations of local government. I wonder what you have done in Alabama, or what other southern governors have done to deal with the plight of this mass of people.
I cannot tell you what other southern governors may have done, but of course your statement that many people are near starvation is entirely incorrect and erroneous. We probably have people in our state, the same as in the state that you are speaking from, that have a deficient diet at times. But as far as anybody starving to death, that's simply not the case. Our system in this part of the country that grew up even after the war between the states that you don't necessarily like, I would say, which had some paternalism in it, has seen that this doesn't happen. But the mechanization of farming, of agriculture, has drawn many people from the rural areas into the large cities of our country unprepared for urban life. We have built a great number of junior colleges and trade schools in our state, and as a consequence, we today have them jammed to capacity with Negro and white students. We are attempting to solve this problem through education. Now, we find that many of our Negro citizens have gone to New Jersey, to Michigan, and to New York because politicians in those states have said it's so good here and it's so bad in Alabama. But we find that many of them who went there came back and said it's a lot better in Alabama than it was there.
Well, Governor, I certainly...
How many came back?
I certainly am an advocate of higher education, and I commend you for the building of junior colleges, but that doesn't do much to ease the plight of families who have no jobs. Now,
Well,
I noticed 2 weeks ago that Justice Hugo Black of the Supreme Court ordered the state of Alabama to restore 20,000 children to the public welfare rolls there.
Yes, sir.
And there are many other reports from southern areas that people are in a state of severe malnutrition bordering on starvation.
Well, that's not correct. I would like to invite you gentlemen to come down and see for yourself, and you will say what many have said when they got here, that we've just been misled. Now,
well, there are a number of commissions that have gone down and have reported to the Congress and to the American people quite to the contrary.
Well,
which
right,
commissions,
but that doesn't mean that the commissions are reporting truth, because we just don't have...
Well, they're
people
very reputable members on these commissions.
Well, Professor Cloward, would you cite a specific commission report, and then we can ask the governor about that?
Well, there was a commission report that was filed just a few months ago.
By whom?
By a group of organizations in the North, such as the Field Foundation. The commission was headed by Mr. Leslie Dunbar, formerly of the Southern Regional Council, and it was supported by a number of foundations, governmental organizations, and private individuals. And they had doctors who examined the condition of children, and very reputable physicians who had no particular stake in condemning the South.
Well, this exists where you have poverty, not only in Alabama and the South, but it exists in New York.
Well, it does exist in Alabama, sir? Is that what you're saying now?
I'm saying that what you're saying, you get the commissions to study Alabama, but where did the rioting and where did the breakdown of law and order come because they said conditions were intolerable? It wasn't in Alabama. We didn't have any breakdown of law and order. We didn't have any rioting.
Nobody said anything about rioting. It was a question
I know
about
you didn't say anything
poverty,
about
Governor.
rioting, but they say that
Well,
the
my
cause of
question
the
was about-
riots came because of poverty.
My question was
And
about
the
economic policy. And,
Well, our economic policy is that...
your public welfare system does not permit people on the rolls, especially children.
We did, no, so here's what we had, a rule that I think is a common sense rule, that if a working, able-bodied man lived in the home, that even though he was not the father or the husband of the wife, but lived with the woman, lived with her in the home where the children were and was working and able-bodied, then you couldn't put those children on age-dependent children because...
Well, but Governor, that amounts to saying that a man who has no legal liability for a family is going to be forced by the welfare system to care for that family.
I think it's a pretty good rule when an able-bodied man lives with a woman and children as man and wife, even though they're not married, and lives in that household that...
But even though he's not employed.
No.
Even though there's no
sir, we didn't say that. I said if he was employed. If he's unemployed, then, of course, they can get age-dependent children. It was when an able-bodied man lived with a woman, the mother of the children, and had employment. They could not...
Governor, in your state, when a man is employed, the family cannot get public welfare. The point is he must leave that family. If he is indeed the father or the husband, he must desert that family before they can then go on to public welfare rolls. That happens to be true in many, many other states, too.
Well, what you're saying, of course, is that you think that we ought to spend more on welfare, and I think we ought to get away from welfare and not pay able-bodied people.
Well, I'd be interested in your answer of how we could do that, Governor. What economic policies have you promulgated to care for people who have been displaced by machines in rural areas?
Well, I said that we have the
junior colleges, which
and trade school program, and another thing we've done.
How do people eat in the meanwhile?
Well, how do they eat in Alabama?
How do they eat while they're waiting to grow up to go to those junior colleges?
Well, they're eating in Alabama, and it's just not as bad as you've heard it happens to be.
Well, now, Secretary
let me answer. We got, last year in our state, we had more new industry than I think any state save one in the South, $655 million of new and expanded industry. We haven't had the non-white unemployment problem in Alabama that you have in the FEPC states. In fact, the Department of Labor reported statistics that show there's less non-white unemployment. At least this was
Governor,
a year
I'm sorry.
ago.
Forgive me. Our time is up, and we must leave now from Montgomery, Alabama. Thanks to you, Governor.
They did them dirty. They did them dirty. Wow. Let me get this one more and I head up out of here. I don't know how long we've been going for. 2 hours, maybe 2 hours.
Up next on Real America Week, the failures and...
From CBS, Governor Wallace. Despite your own optimism about your chances, every poll, every indicator of national opinion shows that you yourself have no hope to win to the presidency. And your critics contend, therefore, that you're deliberately adopting the role of spoiler, that is, trying to throw the election into the House of Representatives. How would you answer that analysis?
Well, at least, Mr. Gronsky, we have critics, and they're paying attention to our movement. As you've noticed in the papers in the last number of days, members of both parties have said we must join together to stop this movement headed by George Wallace. Of course, George Wallace is one individual, but I am speaking for many millions of people in our country. I might say that there are many polls that I win. Radio and television polls all the way from New Bedford, Massachusetts, Syracuse, New York, all the way to Honolulu. I have won on television and radio. Now, the other polls that you're talking about show that we have doubled our strength since April of last year, I believe. And we're just now getting into the campaign. And if you will follow me around the country, you will see that we are having larger crowds than even the candidates for the two other existing major parties. As witness our trip to Ohio yesterday, we had larger crowds than those who came out to witness the arrival of candidates for one of the party Republican or Democratic nominations. We can win the election, and that's the purpose of running, is not to spoil anything, but to spoil, other than to spoil the chances of the Republican and the Democratic Party, which, that is, both of them, neither of them are giving the American people a choice.
Governor Wallace, you just said you thought you could win. Could you indicate the states where you think you're going to win?
I think we're going to win every one of the southern and border states, from Missouri around through Texas, Oklahoma, all the way up into the free state of Maryland. And we have an excellent chance in states like Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, California, Michigan. We have an excellent chance in states like Nebraska and Connecticut and New England. In fact, we are running well in all of the states, even in the western states. But I think we're going to win the southern and border states, and we're going to win
Independent Party.
Several of the states in the Midwest, and a good chance to win California. We also have an excellent chance in New York, whether some people believe it or not. In fact, we've received more mail probably from the state of New York than any state in the Union.
Governor Wallace, are there any conditions now under which you would withdraw from the race before November? Could platform changes cause you to withdraw?
There are no conditions under which I would withdraw from the race for the presidency. I said back last year when I was trying to get on the ballot in California under their most difficult law that this ought to be a lesson to one of the two national parties. They ought to give the American people a choice of not only platform but candidate. But since that time, not only have they not given the American people a choice, but both party leaderships joined together in the passage of the so-called Fair Housing Law, which is really the greatest attack on private property in the history of our country. And every aspirant for the Republican and Democratic nomination, along with the leaders of both parties in Congress, joined together to pass this anti-property ownership law. And in my judgment, if a platform was given to the American people by one of the parties that suited me, it would have to be a 180-degree turn from the present position of the leadership of the two parties.
But, Governor, in your speeches just as recent as this past week, you have occasionally said, and this is not an exact quote, but this is the gist of it, regardless of what happens in November, we're going to change some trends.
Yes, I'm saying that. I say that right now. I say that the fact that we are having the largest crowds, we're having tumultuous support for our attitude and philosophy throughout the country, is today making the leadership of both national parties sit down and think. It's making members of the Congress wonder whether we've been voting right, whether or not we must change our position. And so this movement is going to help change trends in the country.
Well, aren't we talking then about spoiling then, Governor? Aren't you talking then about possible spoiling, about the fact that you probably can't win?
Change in trends is not going to spoil anything. It's going to help correct things. And that's exactly what we're in the race for, is to change directions in our country, because neither one of the two national parties are giving the people a choice in change of directions.
Governor, may I quote to you an observation that you made yourself last February when you contended that your campaign role could be that of a spoiler?
Who said that?
This was in the New York Times on February the 8th when you were quoted as having said that.
Yes, sir.
And then you said...
That I said that?
That you said that.
Well, I don't exactly know where exactly all the exact quotes that I've made on... at press conferences and the context in which that statement was made.
Well, it was here in Washington, sir.
But let me say this, that yes, I'm in the race to spoil, but not to spoil in the sense that you're talking about, is to spoil the chances of both national parties electing a president.
Well, let's try
and
this.
That's, of course, what we are doing. And I can say this, that anybody who votes for the National Republican or National Democratic Party will be throwing their vote away if they think like we do, because you certainly don't have a choice there.
Governor, let's try it this way. You also said at that time, again according to the New York Times, that if the election is thrown into the House, we, that is you, have all to gain and nothing to lose, And you implied then that that kind of a deadlock might well force important concessions from the presidential candidate, whose electoral vote combined with yours would add up to the required 270. Now, if you were thinking along those lines then, has your thinking changed?
Mr. Gronsky, the context in which that statement was made came about as a result of a question from a member of the press in the audience.
Right.
I have never voluntarily said we're going to throw it into the House, and that's our purpose. But the question is asked by members of the press if, Governor Wallace, the hypothetical question and speculative question, if neither one of the two parties get a majority, what would be your position?
Right.
The Congress to pass legislation that did away with decisions of the courts that handcuffed the police, and I would just say we're going to have law and order. And when I said that, and my election would indicate to people in the large, the politicians and leaders of the large cities of our country especially, that the people of our country are sick and tired of the breakdown of law and order, and they in turn then, in my judgment, would tell the police enforce the law. And in my judgment, an enforcement of the law would bring about a restoration of law and order in this country without the expenditure of billions of dollars as proposed by some of the social engineers.
You were quoted as having observed once that the people know the way to stop a riot is to hit someone on the head.
Yes, sir, I've said something similar to that. When somebody goes out and begins to loot and burn a building down, which endangers the health and safety of everybody, that's a good way to stop it. If you let the police know, let the police knock somebody in the head who was breaking a plate glass window, or who was assaulting a policeman, who was assaulting a person on the street, or throwing a firebomb, I think they'd be getting out.
You're a bad man. He said that's one sure way to stop him.
Mighty light if somebody knocked them in the head. And frankly, that's exactly what ought to be done. And if I were the President of the United States, I would take whatever was necessary to prevent what happened in this city if we had to order the knocking in the head of many people. And when you do that, you're going to satisfy the overwhelming majority of people of all races in this country, because it's not a matter of race, it's a matter of anarchists, and the government has kowtowed to every anarchist group in the United States, and as a consequence, we don't have any safety in the streets of our large cities, nor right here in Washington, D.C.
Governor, you've talked about these trends and reversing the trends, but there are a lot of people who are against these trends, who feel that the result of your actions and the result of the things you say is to speed up and accelerate these trends. Senator Sam Ervin, for example, called you, Governor, the chief aider and abetter of these civil rights laws you pretend to be against. And his argument was that the kinds of things you were doing...
4 years ago.
That's right.
You're quoting something that Senator Ervin said 4 years ago. He hadn't said that lately, has he?
I have a quote from 4 years ago.
But what do you think about that principle? So I would like to ask you to ask Senator Ervin, and of course he has a right to his opinion. I think he's a fine man. But don't tell me that I am responsible for what happened in Los Angeles, what happened in Detroit. I wasn't there. I am not the chief aider and abetter to the breakdown of law and order or civil rights programs, anything of that sort. In fact, in Alabama, contrary to what you might know, we didn't have any breakdown of law and order in that state. We had some demonstrations.
No breakdown of law and order in Birmingham?
No, sir. What breakdown of law and order came there? We had some demonstrations that put some water on some people and arrested some folks. Did they burn the city down?
What happened after the Selma disturbances?
The Selma march? One woman was shot on the highway by some thugs. People are shot in Washington every day and in Philadelphia every day. But nobody got hurt in the march, and we had 35,000
Governor, may I interrupt
we had 35,000 people.
Governor, now you cannot say that no one got hurt in the march.
Eight people got hit in the head.
I'm talking about the March 7th march, Governor, and your state patrolman.
Who got hurt?
Well, I would estimate conservatively that at least 15 were hurt in that march.
15 out of 35,000. Did one of them have to go to the hospital?
Yes, sir.
One, how many?
Well, we're talking about 5 years ago.
One person went to the hospital. 8 got hurt at the Selma Bridge. Not a single person got killed involved in the march. And then the next week, 50 are killed in Detroit. 50 are killed in Los Angeles. And a few people got their heads skinned in Selma when there were 35,000 people there. And you call that the breakdown of law and order. While right here in Washington, D.C., people got killed, Hundreds and thousands got injured. And yet, when you talk on these programs, you talk about Selma. And you say 15, well, let's take your word for it. 15 got hurt. In 6 weeks of marching in Selma, 15 got hurt. While in Washington here the other day, over 1,000 got injured in one day. And so the breakdown of law and order certainly hasn't been in Alabama. It's been in Washington. It's been in Detroit. It's been in New Haven. It's been in other places outside of Alabama. I'd be glad to take your figures. 15 were hurt.
I'm talking about one day, Governor. We can go further into the
well, it wasn't
the
a single
Reed
person
killing.
killed in the not under the jurisdiction. They were killed in Los Angeles. So, comparatively speaking, we've had peace, and it's generally accepted in the press that we've had peace in the South
I think
compared to what you have in other parts of the
trying to
country.
make, and which I think Senator Urban was trying to make. His point was that that what followed after that was civil rights laws.
Let me say this. You go
Isn't
and ask,
that true that what followed after those
you're
things was
quoting
civil rights
Senator
laws?
Irvin 4 years ago. In fact, over 4 years ago, going on 5 years ago.
Is it right or is it wrong that what followed after
No, sir.
64 and 65 was civil
No,
rights
sir.
laws?
Well, every time that somebody wants a law passed, they go out and do something. Now, we had Martin Luther King tragically assassinated, and they use that as an excuse to pass the anti-property law, so-called open housing. So what followed after that? So you see, there's always somebody can say that some reason exists for the passage of some law. But I can say to you that if I become the president, we're going to maintain law and order in the nation's capital, and when we do that, it's going to be a good moral support for law and order throughout the United States, where women can walk the streets, where people can go to work, where people can ride the subways and the transit systems of our country.
Governor, you've repeatedly objected to being called a racist.
Yes, sir.
You don't regard yourself as a racist.
No, sir, I don't regard myself as a racist, and I think the biggest racists in the world are those who call other folks racist.
Okay.
I think the biggest bigots in the world are those who call other folks bigots.
All
And
right,
let me point out, my wife got more Negro vote in the general election for governor of Alabama 2 years ago than either one of her two opponents, and she got nearly all of them at Selma. So I would say that Negro citizens would not have voted for my wife in Alabama if the mass of Negro citizens had considered me a racist or my wife a racist.
Governor, when you were inaugurated, you made a very famous observation. You said in your inaugural address,
Segregation, yes, sir.
today,
Yes, sir.
segregation tomorrow,
That's right.
segregation forever.
I
What
said
does
that within
mean?
the context of Alabama's public school system. And I again say that when I said that, I was honest. And when I come to Washington, D.C., and I see all of these folks who talk one way but move to Virginia and Maryland, when I see all these bridges built across the Potomac River to help expedite the rush away from this city of the liberals.
What bridges, Governor?
Oh, these big bridges that got across
They've been
the
here
Potomac
quite a
River.
while.
Well, I'm being facetious about that, but you sure got a lot of them because you got to expedite the rush of people away from the nation's capital. Only 6 members of the Congress out of 535 got their children in the public schools in Washington. And all these pseudo-liberals and intellectuals here who are hypocrites have moved away
Let's
from
leave them
Washington
aside,
and-
Governor, and address this question to yourself. What do you mean when you say segregation within the context
I
of the
meant that
public
in the
school
public
system? You mean
school system-
separation of the races,
No,
do you
sir.
know?
No, sir.
What do you mean?
You see, segregation, you don't understand, Mr. Gronsky, yourself, evidently. There's been more mingling, more mixing, and more association and togetherness of the races in Alabama than there has been in New York from, I believe, whence you come, or in Washington, D.C. But we did have a social separation in the school system because the school systems of the rural South were the social center. So we just quite candidly and honestly said, we'll have a separate school system. And we were honest about it. And we think
Well,
that...
no one doubts your honesty in saying you wanted
No,
a separate school
what I'm
system.
talking-
I'm talking about the meaning of separation and
I'm
segregation.
trying to play up the hypocrisy of folks in other parts of the country and in the nation's capital who say we for integration...
I'm not relating them to anybody else.
Well,
I'm talking about your position.
I'm relating
If you were
them, though.
president,
Well,
what would you do
I
about
wouldn't advocate segregation if I were president. I could care less what the people of Alabama, California do in their school system. I would only say you run your schools yourself. But we're not going to use federal money to bus children in Chicago from one neighborhood to the other. If you want to do it in Chicago or St. Louis or Philadelphia, you do it. I wouldn't advocate segregation of anything. I would advocate only that these domestic institutions be run by the people in Philadelphia. and in St. Louis and in Los Angeles. And they could then have the type school system they wanted.
We have federal laws, Governor, that apply to all the nation, not to Philadelphia or Los Angeles.
That's what I'm
or
arguing,
St.
is
Louis.
that federal...
Well, what would you do about the
Well,
laws that
we
exist?
don't have any laws that go as far as HEW guidelines. The guidelines today transcend even the civil rights law. We'll obey the law, whatever the law happens to be, but the law of this country does not say that you've got to transport little children from one neighborhood to the another. In fact, the civil rights law expressly prohibits that. Yet HEW is going beyond what the law says, and I would stop that. And I would ask the Congress to change some of the laws that have taken over the public school systems of New York, and Philadelphia, and Chicago, and turn them back to the people there. I don't want any separate black and white in the country in the sense of separatism you're talking about.
Why do you advocate it?
Well, I haven't advocated, Mr. Gronsky, not at all. I haven't advocated that at all.
Governor,
we
can I
have more
switch you to-
togetherness in Alabama than you have in Washington, D.C. This is a segregated city here because of the hypocrites that moved out.
Governor, can I switch you to another subject?
This is the hypocrite capital of the world.
Well, Governor, you've said that you thought you had a chance to be president, and I think maybe we ought to address ourselves to some of the questions that a president would have to deal with. What would be your approach to the problem of the nuclear arms race, to the Non-Proliferation Treaty, for instance?
Well, of course, I hope and pray that the step in the non-dissemination of nuclear information is honest.
Not information, is it?
Well, I mean, not information, but the weapons themselves. That's an honest effort on the part of the major powers who must sign, of course, the treaty, and 40 other countries.
Would you be in favor of signing?
I would be in favor of that step provided we had adequate inspection programs and adequate safeguards to see that the treaty was not violated.
Does the treaty satisfy you as it is now?
The what?
Does the treaty satisfy you as it's written now?
Well, I'm not exactly sure whether it satisfies me or not, but I would say this, that it is a step in the direction of some dialogue, as we like to say, between the great powers and the great nuclear powers, and the matter of the giving of atomic nuclear weapons to other countries, and to prohibit that is good, provided we have adequate safeguards.
Do you think the safeguards are adequate in the treaty?
I'm not sure whether they are or not. I'm just not sure.
Governor,
if they are adequate, then that's one thing, and if they aren't adequate, it's another. I don't, and of course we understand that under that treaty, any nation can withdraw within a certain notice to the other signatories, and which really means that it's not all that binding. But I am for doing something real and concrete in the matter of the spread of nuclear weapons if we can have adequate safeguards insofar as protecting the national interest of the United States.
On the matter of Vietnam, Governor, around the campaign trail, people who support you say they like your stand on Vietnam. Yet your stand is rather simple. Could you say just how we should solve that, which is certainly one of the great
Well, I've
issues?
said in my speeches, you know, Mr. Benton, there's no simple solution. That I don't impugn the motives of those in the top echelons of our government because it's an exasperating experience. I do say again that we should have not gotten in by ourselves, that we should have had a long talk with our Western European allies and non-communist Asian allies, and insisted they help us in some manner because we've helped them so much with our money and our nuclear shield, but that's water over the dam, and we are in Vietnam, whether we like it or not. So, whatever we do should be in the interest of those who are there. I pray the Paris peace talks are successful, that once they get beyond the propaganda stage, that we can have an honorable peace through political and diplomatic negotiations. But if this fails, then there's only one conclusion to rely upon, one method to rely upon, and that's the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And if they thought that the war could be concluded militarily with conventional weapons, that's what I would support, and then bring the American servicemen home.
Well, let's take this step by step, sir. Right now we're in Paris.
That's right.
You have not mentioned, I don't think, as other candidates have, whether or not this country should insist on some sort of recognition of the National Liberation Front. How do you feel about it?
Well, I think maybe the sad experience in Laos and other places where you have had coalition government in which the Viet Cong or the communist terrorists involved, that you lay the groundwork for the real takeover of the country by the communists. At the moment, and I think I would be even later, I am against a terrorist group, the Viet Cong and the National Liberation Front, being involved in the government through negotiations. That is, by giving them a place in the government. I don't think they deserve to be in the government, and I think that if you let them be represented in the peace talks and set up a government with them having an equal voice, or a voice with the other groups in South Vietnam, you are really setting the basis for a takeover of the Viet Cong of the government of South Vietnam.
Do you see any hope for a political settlement without any recognition of the NLF?
I don't know exactly whether, I couldn't tell you. I just don't know it. I don't think the president knows, and I don't think that the Republicans know. I think we're going to have to wait and see what comes out of the Paris peace talks. We can pray about it, and we can hope about it, but if they do not get a settlement, honorable settlement from the Paris peace talks, in my judgment, we ought to lean on the Joint Chiefs of Staff and have a military conclusion to the war in Southeast Asia and bring the American servicemen home.
Governor.
And also, we should stop these folks in this country from advocating communist victory and building the morale of the communists. I'm tired of our children and grandchildren.
Stop them how, Governor?
Stop them how? By indicting a professor who makes a speech calling for communist victory, and it's printed in the communist world. That aids the communists. By a man who raises money, blood, and clothes for the communists on a college campus and flies a Viet Cong flag. That's not dissent. That's treason. You have a right to say, let's get out of the war. We don't want to be in the war, but you don't have a right to call for communist victory, and the average man on the street's sick and tired of it.
Governor, I regret we have run out of time. Thank you very much for being here to face the nation.
Martin.
Shit. These politicians back in the day, them motherfuckers was no joke. Yeah, right? I bet some niggas voted against that motherfucker. They were like, oh, hell no, we can't let this nigga get up there. Damn. That shit was crazy, right? He a bad motherfucker. You say he ain't. Yeah, he a bad man. Got that smirk on his face, too. Yup. I'm about to fall asleep. I think I fell asleep on y'all once already. I played it off. Head my ass went out of here. But thank y'all for tuning in. I appreciate it. Yeah, but yeah, definitely thanks y'all for stopping by. Appreciate it. Make sure you smack that like button on the way out. I want to do another video on this, especially that other guy, Maddox. Definitely want to do another video on him. Maybe show that same video again. That was a good video. That was a good video. It's almost like these dudes know how the shit works, and then the people that's complaining against them don't know how it works, but they're not going to tell them how it works. Like, know what I mean? So they're just going to talk cocky and all types of shit because they know these people's complaints really can't do nothing because they don't even make sense, but they're not going to tell them better. I don't know. With that, y'all, I'm going to head my ass on out of here if I fall asleep again. Thank you, Sister P. Hold down the chat again for me once again. You know, Sheep Out, if any people out here need to get out of this damn coat, like I always say, get out. Leave the coat, fool. Well, Sister P got the link for you. Coat Education. Just go on there and check it out. Hopefully get yourself some help. Never be afraid to be cold. Run down. All right, Killer Beat and Witchfinder General. You got a witch out burning their goddamn asses up. Thank you everybody for stopping by. Mrs. P, Shamian, Willie Grits, Chris Harris, Josh, big time YouTuber turned Tally. Who else? Yeah, it should cover Hoover too. Yep. Oh yeah, Q, the Q, Mrs. B, P, Josh, Chris Harris, and big time YouTube return Tally in the Mulatto 5. Shout out to all of y'all. P said he should cover all of them, including Hoover, his little secret. Shout out to Witchfinder General. Thanks for having us. Peace, fam. Yep, thank y'all for stopping by too. Yep. Do you and your family members need help getting out of the cult? Cult Information Center. CultEducation.com. Alright. Yep, so what's that? I can go pop into that No Face Killer track called Track 2. Peace. Have a good night, people.
I recognize true talk, I never lie. The second I'm proved wrong is the day the devil will cool off in temperature. In hell it be lukewarm, my temper is short like your attention span. Can't quite remember what you were offended at. My parents have no idea that I made a new friend in my detention class. His name is Tuesday, and he claims to be the Justin Timberlake of rap, bringing tension back. Heaven didn't take him, God sent his ass straight to hell. Satan said hell, no one sent him back. Took a selfie of himself and basked as he swelters in a smelly bathroom, as he's joking with the sweaty hand because it's healthy. Biatch, looky here, I'm not your friend and I'm not your bro. I'm not hip-hop or rock and roll, I'm just pissed off. I don't even like music, how'd I end up on this song? Looky here, I'm not your friend and I'm not your bro. I'm not hip-hop or rock and roll, I'm just pissed off. I don't even like this song. Till Ronald Reagan and trickle down, the economy's gotten better. A shiny new nickel is what I found in this foggy weather. Pardon me, mister, but I don't want to start any problems. You just stood outside first. Yeah, you that call me that palm that don't act like I didn't watch it. Just pick it up with your sausage fingers and toss it right in your jocket's written rich pocket. I'm talking to you, you money grubbing cocksucker. Go squat and sniff a whiff from under cheese from my boxers. These underbriefs have been wafted for months or weeks. I've been wanting to shop for laundry detergent for fucking weeks. For some strange reason, the MasterCard is maxed out and the magnet strip on my Visa. It hasn't been functioning. How convenient. A measly 5 cents short of completing this transaction. I'm asking the cashier to be lenient. I'd appreciate decency and compassion. I'll pay you back during tax season. Capiche, at least half of it. Looky here, I'm not your friend and I'm not your bro. I'm not hip-hop or rock and roll. I'm just pissed off. I don't even like music, how'd I end up on this song? Looky here, I'm not your friend, and I'm not your bro. I'm not hip-hop or rock and roll, I'm just pissed off. I don't even like this song. I guess I'll bury the hatchet. A person who holds a grudge isn't very attractive. And while I'm at it, bury those axes along with the bodies that belong to the cash register clerks after. playing AC/DC backwards on a highway to hell, driving in reverse, riding with pastors. Peter Popoff and Jimmy Swaggart are fighting over some passage he can't find, cause his Bible is missing chapters. Listen, bastards, if you two don't pipe down, I'ma turn his car around or move the shift to drive right now. And don't think I'm not gonna find out who it was that took my coloring book and painted black Jesus with white out. I dropped Joel Osteen off at the Antichrist's house and told him to wipe that smile off of his giant mouth for 5 minutes, then try frowning for 9 hours. And this is how I rise to my power. Looky here, I'm not your friend, and I'm not your bro. I'm not hip-hop or rock and roll. I'm just pissed off. I don't even like music, how'd I end up on this song? Looky here, I'm not your friend, and I'm not your bro. I'm not hip-hop or rock and roll. I'm just pissed off. I don't even like this song.
Killer Bee, the goddamn witch finder general. You got a witch. I'll burn they goddamn asses. Peace, y'all. Till tomorrow.